Minister of Finance was copied to the Secretary of the President. So knowing is one thing, authorizing is another. There was clarity needed there. For example, President spoke on Radio Gold interview saying that he felt that those who caused the initial financial loss should also be brought to book, as it were. I mean, doesn't that compromise Yoko in a way? Why is he assuming that there was some financial loss caused in the first place? So these are critical questions that should have been asked. And there were opportunities where you would have felt that after the president said that, somebody could have jumped in. But because of the nature of the program, it wasn't possible to do that. So for me, it's a good exercise. It's nice to know what 25 journalists think. But really, if you want to grill and get to the bottom of the matter, this is not the forum to do it.
Jiva?
Yeah.
Do you think, I'm sure it is related to what you're about to say, do you think, even though there's no arts to find a mines construction phase?
Our literature teacher, oh, thank God we remember that.
You know, do you think that the style should be changed? Where, for example, it's Jifa, it's Evans, it's Bernard, and the president for 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. And then we open the floor to others to maybe join in or something, or for 30 minutes. Not necessarily so. Or some other format that you think will work better. Or do you think we should maintain what we have? Because people seem to be complaining that this is not working.
Not necessarily. You can still maintain the current format. I think one of the crucial issues, it seems, is that so many journalists were invited. For instance, from the multimedia group, I'm sure, 5 to 8 journalists were probably there because Israel and Evans came from Joy FM. We had someone from Multi TV. Yes, we had the news editor for Multi TV, and I'm sure people from Adum. So when you have, and then City FM, they had 2 people at least that I saw. I don't know if there were more. You had 3. All right. So I think media houses too must designate, is the way the invitations were even done. People get personal invitations. I think media houses should be specifically invited. Then they can assign the reporter. Then I'm sure it will cut back to start with on the numbers. Then you have the system of calling people up to come and ask their question. I think there's a lot of learning also that needs to be done. Sometimes we as journalists, we put too many preambles and a lot of the praise singing before. I mean, let's face it, even if you support the president, there is no need to come there and sing his praises. I'm sure the people who know it know it. Just come and ask the specific questions. I think people will even respect you more for that you came. It wasn't anything personal. It wasn't about patronizing. I don't think the president even wants to be patronized. So just come up there, ask the specific question. And beyond that too, I think that when you see that certain questions keep, at a point we should then, let's move on. Otherwise, then it becomes a wasted opportunity. It becomes a wasted opportunity. But just 1 minute, Evans. But I doubt that the format will change. I spoke to Mr. Anidoho this evening, and I posed that issue to him. He said the format will not change. But I think maybe what could happen, like Bernard did suggest, is if there's more interaction. If there are more, because sometimes it's like you've waited 1 whole year before you're coming to put this question to the president. Maybe 3 times a year. I doubt it can be every quarter.
You ask the question, he takes a drink of water.
But let me just make the point on corruption, since we're also supposed to analyze the content. I think the president's comment on corruption should have been more specific about what he can do to curb it. Because the truth is, we have an anti-corruption plan, a new one that has just been submitted by Shra to the vice president. It tells, and from the interactions, it was obvious that the old plan did not exactly work. And so last year on the corruption index, we didn't do very well. So I think we need to sit up as a country. Institutions must sit up, because obviously the president can't come and be checking on each public or private institution. I think institutions need to sit up and institute measures to prevent corruption from being pervasive. That's the only way. Are you impressed with the president's own personal attempts at cabinet? The president alone outwardly comes off good on that, but he alone cannot do it. He's surrounded by people, and a lot of the time the accusation is his appointees are not living up to expectation. So yes, he has to crack the whip on them if he gets information that they are not living up to expectation. Okay. But I think as a people too, we need to report if we have allegations of corruption. We shouldn't just throw it out there in the media, which is what we are fond of doing. So it's two things. Yes, the president has to also take action. I think institutions also need to sit up and make sure that their institutions are corruption-free. And then we as individuals too, if we encounter cases of corruption, we should go and report and see that action is done.
Evans,
yeah.
What's your take on the matter of corruption?
I think that it lacked specifics in terms of the answer he gave, because I was just before I went to the interaction, I just checked the manifesto and I checked his first State of the Nation's address, and there were bullet points that he had put in there when it came to corruption and good governance that he said he was going to deliver. A key one, which is very controversial and is still before Parliament, is the Freedom of Information Act. He said he was going to do it within a specific time frame. Now, that is a key instrument that could deal with corruption, for example. So I was surprised when the president was answering the question. And indeed, we are told that the bill actually is before Parliament. And if indeed he had worked on it and it had gone to the stage of a bill and is before Parliament, I was expecting him to say something about it. He can't claim that he doesn't know that it's before them. And at what stage? But
the president doesn't work on bills.
No, absolutely, I agree. But if he started it, if the executive started the process, and it's a key point that he had raised in his manifesto and put in his First of the Nation's address, it must be an important element in his fight of corruption, that he will be interested in the entire process from the beginning of the drafting of the bill to its passage. And the president can exert influence. We cannot claim that the president can exert influence on Parliament. We've seen bills, STS and others, where the executive had indeed exerted pressure on Parliament to pass them.
Especially when the president has majority in Parliament.
Exactly. So I felt I was surprised that wasn't mentioned, because again, I thought it lacked a bit of specifics, and that's what you mentioned.
But what about the point about the president raising issues about the ports, etc., visiting those places, the results of Anas's investigations, and how he got him off the ground or on his feet, so to speak, and saying also that there are issues that we all have in us that we have to deal with, etc. And I remember
what has changed at the ports? What has changed with reference to allegations of...
That was the question I asked you earlier, Jifa, which you didn't answer, about the president's personal
That's what I said, that as a person... So I thought you meant that he himself, as a person, because, for instance, one of the things
president,
is...
not just as a person, but as the president. Whichever way you look at it, this executive type presidency we run.
And that is why I said these are institutions. A huge
burden on your head.
Individual.
That is why I said these are institutions. So the heads of those institutions, in fact, I remember at the time people said heads should roll, people should be sacked and all that. And I think that's one of the problems even sometimes we have. Sometimes when officials are sitting pretty and they know that, oh, nothing is really going to happen to them, then the problems persist. And that's why I said institutions have to sit up. The president cannot keep hopping from one institution to the next on a surprise visit. Oh, nothing will change. Nothing will change.
Personally, I mean, taking the president as the person who leads the way in the fight against corruption, I think it's been more of rhetoric, less of action. And
more of rhetoric, less of action. Bernard, do you share that view?
Well, I mean, I'll just say, I heard somebody say something clever, and I repeat, it says, we should be remembered for the power of our example, not the example of our power. I think that the president's demeanor is useful. He doesn't necessarily take per diem when he travels. He doesn't seem very interested in money. And you can see why his opponents try to attack him and attack. I think that's an important thing. But the point we're making is that don't leave it at that. The power of your example is not enough to deal with a canker like corruption. Well,
you're saying it's a national matter. If the president didn't take a hamper at Christmas,
that doesn't mean that I wouldn't take a hamper. I took a few and wanted more. So you see, so the institutions, and as Jifa is saying, you can't address corruption by simply talking about the power of your example. Institutions, who has been prosecuted, how many people have been jailed? You know, or sacked.
As he, for example, empowered the institutions enough to be able to execute their mandate in a manner that we will be satisfied. I think it's one of the things that we should also we can also explore.